Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 131 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, at Falcoholic Kevin, joined by a full house of guests tonight to break down the Falcons' hiring of Terry Fontenot as their next GM. Obviously, we're also going to talk about recent head coach hire Arthur Smith. We're going to get into their press conferences. We're, of course, going to celebrate the departure of Dirk Cutter and some other coaches that you probably don't have as strong of feelings about. Maybe some of you do if you're really, wonky about the team, which I'm sure you are. Who am I talking to here? But
you guys haven't celebrated that yet?
Oh yeah, I mean I did off camera, but I figured we would need to have an on-camera ceremony. I brought the ceremonial torch to throw onto the pyre back there, to light the signals. Yes, but as you can see, we are joined by Eric Robinson. He is at _Eric_Robinson on Twitter. Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's a new regime, guys. It's a breath of fresh air, a new start. I just see nothing but rainbows and sunshine and green grass and like, man, this feels good.
You may be high.
Maybe high on life.
High on a new regime, though.
And maybe also. But let's just go with the scenic picture. Let's go with that for the sake of the art.
Yeah. I think Charles McDonald summed it up perfectly when he tweeted out the Office gif of I'm ready to be heard again. I'm ready. I totally am. Also with us tonight, as you guys can tell, is the man himself, Dave Choate at the Falcoholic. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm great. I have not seen Falcons fans so happy in years. Like the gifts I've been getting for Dirk Cutter leaving, even though we all knew it was going to happen, is just fantastic. So, everything is, as Eric said, sunshine and rainbows and well-fertilized grass.
Yep.
From all the shit the last regime left behind.
Until the first rain out in week 1. Then we're like,
oh yeah, we're all gonna freak out. I can't wait to hear the specific criticisms. I already tweeted this out, but the first time Arthur Smith gives a press conference after a loss, we're going to find what we hate about his delivery, and we're going to run it into the ground over the next 3 to 5 years. Like, it's happening.
Oh, they're gonna curse the scheme by halftime of the first game.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Matt Ryan threw an interception in this brand new scheme. Well, it's probably not brand new. We're going to talk about that, but and it's going to be his head. Noodle arm Matt Ryan's back. Where's Odd when you need him? We need him to pick up the Matt Ryan slander in here. We're all too positive right now. So no, he'll be here later, folks. I promise. But also with us tonight on that note is David Walker, aka DW at Falcoholic DW, host of the Falcoholic podcast. I'm sure you're all familiar. DW, how are you doing today?
I'm great, man. It's a whole new world across the board. Like I was telling you guys before we started, I watched 8 Titans games from 2020 this weekend, and I've got lots of thoughts about Arthur Smith. I can't wait to talk about them.
Oh yeah, they're very exciting candidates, certainly. And last but certainly not least, we have Evan Birchfield at the very easy to remember Evan Birchfield. Evan, how are you this evening?
I'm good. Just to add on to the excitement, it's like I run the Falcoholics Instagram page, and normally I get a lot of messages of criticism of the Falcons as if I'm running the Falcons, which I'm not. But now all the messages have been really excited, and a lot of the followers, enjoyed the press conference, which I also agree with. It was just a breath of fresh air, and just excited. It's nice to have hope and some sort of optimism going forward. But yeah, excited. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Yeah, of course. And Jeffrey Miller, the Matt Ryan hater is coming, okay? He has obligations that he has to fulfill. Adnan will be here at some point, I promise. But yes, in the meantime, we have hashtag Dave Meet, so I don't know. You guys should be satisfied with that. We only get Dave Meet a few times a year. So, but on that note, I know Dave has somewhat of a limited time tonight, so I want to make sure to get his take on this first. You were able to come in on our last show to talk about Arthur Smith. So now that we know for sure that Terry Fontenot is the new hire, go ahead and give me your takeaways from Fontenot's hiring. Fontenot.
Fontenot.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's potato. Yeah.
Potato, tomato. I really I really like the guy. I think, hearing him speak, a lot of people were talking about winning the press conference, which is something that we talk about everything that way now, right? It's like win or lose, the most mundane things. But I think from hearing him talk, it's obvious that he's a guy with a plan. It's obvious that he's, I think, fundamentally a good person. As far as we can possibly know that, based on hearing a guy speak for an hour or two, this is somebody who's got it together, has a ton of experience, climbing the ranks from a marketing intern, I think,
Yeah.
all the way up to the position that he's holding now, or was holding before he joined the Falcons. Just a guy that really clearly believes in a consistent approach to roster building, and somebody who's going to come into Atlanta with a fresh perspective, coming from that pro personnel side. Whereas Dimitrov obviously was a college scouting director in New England before he got here. I think it's all valuable. I think what he brings to the table is really exciting, and I think we can never know how a GM candidate is going to do. It was the same thing with Dimitrov, right? We didn't know what New England's college scouting director was going to be able to do in Atlanta, and he made a splash right away and rode a lot of bicycles, and it was a great time for everybody for a while.
For a while.
But for a while, and all good things end, I guess. But with Fontenot, especially the way he and Arthur Smith are planning to work together, if things go well and they can execute on this plan, it may not be 2021. I think we have to be realistic about that. But in the next couple of years, I think these guys are coming in with the kind of open-minded thinking, the flexibility, the accountability that they're talking about is going to make a difference for this franchise. So, as long as they don't blow that number 4 pick, I'm really excited about Fontenot, and I hope that he's able to bring the vision that he's talking about to bear on Atlanta. And I hope that losing him causes the Saints to crumble to dust. So
yeah. No, I totally agree there. I hope that, we talked about this before because I know Eric in particular was, worried about giving the Saints some picks in exchange for Fontenot. But if he is as good as he appears to be, if that press conference is any indication, I mean, we have a special person on our hands. I mean, I was blown away by that press conference. He was electric. He just kind of radiates genuineness. And this is going to sound like a dunk on Dimitrov, and it is. Dimitrov came off as the fakest guy, with the coiffed hair and all this, everything he said was you just knew it was a lie. He talked in coach speak, and he made no effort to make it sound like he was telling the truth. Fontenot definitely did the same thing and talked in coach speak and didn't really reveal anything, but he made it clear that he wasn't going to tell you anything. So it was just a completely different experience. He was like, yeah, look, I'm just not going to tell you this because it's going to reveal stuff, but that's why I'm not going to tell you it. Instead of oh, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to look at offense and defense and every position on the board and, we'll get back to you. And no, don't belittle us with that, So I appreciated that from Fontenot. That was something I liked from the press conference. But DW, what was your takeaways here from Terry Fontenot?
Actually, one of the things that came from Arthur Blank that was kind of surprising, I think some of us were surprised, was when he intimated that Mickey Loomis, the GM of the Saints, had reached out to him, gave him his endorsement, obviously, of Fontenot, and then basically said that if Loomis was retiring now, that Fontenot was going to be the next GM of the Saints. So that warmed my cold, dead heart, knowing that we took away their future GM. Mm-hmm. But it's also, it's look, I don't want to heap any praise on the Saints organization or the dark Sith Lord Mickey Loomis. But he has been a successful GM in the league for many, many years. And if his plan was to groom Fontenot into that position, I think that says a lot about what the Falcons saw and the fact that they stole him away, and stole him away as a division rival, which is, you don't see that happen too often. And I agree with everything you guys have said. I don't want to rehash the stuff you said. To me, he's the opposite of Dimitrov, but I love the fact that, within the Saints organization, they loved him and they thought that he was going to be the next guy until we, sweeped in and stole them off of them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was very impressive, very impressive. Eric, your thoughts on Terry Fontenot's hiring now that it's official? I know you were skeptical of the Saints connection, so where are you at now?
One thing, even not even just him, but when there's new GMs being introduced in their press conferences, one thing that I look at when it comes to these guys, especially first-time GMs, is the structure of a lot of their answers. How are they answering these questions? Does it seem like they're reading a script? Does it seem like they're babbling on for no reason? Or does it seem like they're actually prepared? It really seemed like he was prepared for every single question that he received at the press conference. Like, he knew what was going to be asked, how it was probably going to be asked, even anticipated D-Led leading off the press conference with a question, because it's obviously shows that the guy has done his homework a little bit. So that's one thing that I took away from, that he was very prepared for a first-time general manager. And that is the result of having, almost 2 decades of sitting next to Mickey Loomis and Jeff Ireland and just picking up nuggets from those guys here and there. You can tell he learned some things along the way. Also keep in mind, this guy has a business degree, so that helps. And he starts off as a marketing intern. So of course that helps as well. He knows how to prepare things and make it look a certain way to appealing to the audience. That's pretty much what he went to school for. So that is one thing I took away from him. I will say this: there's really, as far as what they're going to do for the team, I'm glad that neither him or Arthur Smith really gave anything away. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I will say this: draft night is going to tell me a lot about Fontenot and Smith and what they want to do going forward, because Fontenot brings the pro personnel side to it.
Right.
And you saw the Saints have been successful with adding veterans over the years, and he's been a part of that. Now, he does have some experience as a college scout, doing some scouting here and there. He's been a Senior Bowl several times with Loomis. He's been on the road with Loomis as well. But that is a different aspect. And again, what happens on draft night is going to tell me a lot about what he learned over the years from Loomis and Ireland when it comes to that particular aspect. And it feels good to hear him kind of lean on Ozzie Newsome as a reference, as a source of reference for that.
Yeah.
So that ultimately, that's what I took away from it. This guy is he's really prepared for someone that's stepping into a major role for the first time. But you can tell he has 20 years experience in the front office.
Yeah. For a guy that's walking into his first GM job, he did not seem that way. The moment was certainly not too big for him. So that was nice to see. Evan, what is your takeaway on the hiring of Terry Fontenot to be the Falcons' next GM?
I loved it. I didn't know much about him. I think a lot of people didn't, just because of the position he was in. He didn't have like a ton of press conferences or anything. Just knew he was from the Saints, and that was about it. But you can't watch that that press conference and come away thinking like we're not in good hands. Super bright. I loved his little family coming out with the Falcons gear on. You can just tell him, like listening to him speak, he's a very intelligent person, as Eric said, business background and marketing background. He's not a dummy. He's gonna get us to where we want to be, I believe. I did like the best player available kind of talk he had there. It's just kind of a totally different direction than what we normally do. But overall, I'm just excited. That was my favorite interview between the two, just because, like, as much as he was talking, I wanted to keep hearing more. Like, he said a lot throughout the whole press conference, but there was so much I wanted to keep hearing. And I was watching it just thinking to myself, I hope somebody asks this question, because it's like, you just want to pick his brain. Because like, we were familiar with Arthur Smith, obviously. We all knew he was offensive coordinator, and we could kind of see, through stats or like DW mentioned, watching the Titans games and stuff, you could kind of see what Arthur Smith brought to the table. But Fontenot, it's like you don't know a ton about him, and I was blown away. So I can only imagine what Arthur Blank and Rich McKay and whoever else was in on those calls when they first interviewed him thought. He would be my, I mean, I haven't interviewed any other GM candidates, but I could see why he would be the top pick for him. I don't know. I'm just excited, and that's scary as a Falcons fan, but I'm just excited to hear more press conferences or whatever interviews going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really exceptional. It was very exciting to see that, and he said all the right things for me. And we're gonna get into those things here in just a moment, guys. Before we do that,
the one thing.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I just wanted to say the one thing I forgot to mention. And I know, I mean, I wasn't like close to Vaughn. He had me blocked on Twitter, but I knew of the impact he had on several people. So just that quick mention of where he talked about Vaughn McClure. Obviously, for those who don't know, he covered the Falcons for ESPN, and he passed away a couple months ago. He just mentioning that, I think a lot of people, love that part of the interview just because he didn't have to mention it. That was his time to kind of talk about himself. Which obviously was a big thing because a lot of people didn't know about him. But to be selfless like that and take the time to talk about Vaughn and, talk about some little memories of theirs, I thought that was really a good moment.
Yeah, I thought that was really special and really impactful. And it was true, right? Like for another team's a VP and assistant GM to actually have any kind of relationship with a rival team's beat writer, like it's just kind of odd. But Vaughn was like that. Like he just, like, I only spoke with him a handful of times when I was covering the Falcons, and he was just always very friendly. He sometimes come off a little brusque on Twitter, but in person he was always just friendly. And I'm glad to see that Fontenot was able to experience that as well, and it was nice of him to honor Vaughn McClure there. Yeah, guys, we're going to keep going on this and lots of other topics. In the meantime, if you haven't liked the show yet, you should do that because we really appreciate that. It helps other folks find us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button as well if you're not subscribed. And check out our Patreon if you're interested in supporting the show and getting access to some exclusive patron features. So check that stuff out. Yeah, let's keep the Vaughn thing obviously very cool. I definitely wanted to touch on some of the things Fontenot said in his press conference. And the first one to me was that he wasn't really looking to leave New Orleans. Like this was not something where he was going out to teams and saying like, "Hey, I'm really interested in being a GM, like put me on your list, hire me. I want to be a GM." Like he made it clear that he was basically happy to stay on the Saints. He loved his job there, but when the Falcons reached out, that was a big opportunity for him, an opportunity that he wanted to take. So, Dave Choate, did you, what did you take away from that? Do you think he was just blowing smoke, or do you think that the Falcons actually were this? Because I think we believed the Falcons were a desirable job for several reasons, but the national media seemed to think the other thing. Fontenot seemed to indicate that he thought that it was a desirable job. So what's your takeaway on that?
Well, I think you're going to say that about the job you land, right? But I also think, if Mickey Loomis was sincere about, Fontenot getting his job when he eventually retired, that could be a long time. But at the same time, I think that speaks volumes about, Fontenot needing the right opportunity to leave, right? I'm sure that Loomis didn't, miss an opportunity to say to him, you're the next in line at some point. If he's saying that to Arthur Blank, I'm sure he meant it. I'm sure he said it at some point to Fontenot. But I do think, the Rich McKay thing is something that I think probably was a real obstacle. I think more than that, the power structure in the Falcons organization was weird in recent years. I think we all saw in the 2019 offseason in particular, there was some stuff with the offensive line, Arthur Blank being like, we got to fix the line, and Dimitrov taking it upon himself to sign 2 guards and then draft 2 more guys in the first round. Like those were moves that felt like Dimitrov would not have necessarily made in years past. They weren't always about piling those up at one position group. And so I did get the sense that whether it was McKay getting more involved in the football side of things, or, Blank himself dictating some things, there were issues with those guys getting too hands-on, which is why I think they were at such pains all this offseason to say, that's not going to happen. The next GM is going to have the power to do what he wants to do. And I think Fontenot got that impression. And I think once you get past that piece of it, it's always been the case that the Atlanta Falcons, I think, are viewed as a talented football team. Like, I don't think that, the announcers who say that, I don't think the other team GMs and coaches who say that are entirely blowing smoke. I think this is really a team that has considerable talent on it. It has some really desirable star players that you'd want to be, on your team if you were starting from scratch, which Fontenot kind of is. In Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, especially in Grady Jarrett, let's say. So I do think this is a desirable job. I think once you get through the next year or two and you clear some of that cap space off, you decide what you're going to do with a couple of your aging stars. You got a lot of young defenders you can mold. You've got a pretty strong foundation for your offensive line. And you've got Calvin Ridley, who is the kind of young star receiver that any team would like to have. So I think, is this the most desirable job in terms of draft capital, in terms of, draft picks? No, but I think you can sense that you're going to get a supportive owner, that you have a solid base to start off of. And maybe you get to stick it to your old team and show them, what you're really made of. So I think when you combine those things together, yeah, it was a desirable job. Fontenot clearly wanted it. I don't think they had to, beg him to come here and give him cartoon sacks of money, even though I think Arthur Blank probably has those in his office. So, at the end of the day, it's easy for us as fans to get down on this team and where they're at. And it's understandable why we would. They've stunk for 3 straight years. They fell apart after the Super Bowl in slow motion, which is maybe the worst way you can fall apart.
Yeah.
But there's enough here that somebody like Fontenot would be eager to come in and say, especially with a coach that he seems to like and respect, and Smith, here's what we can do, with the power we've been given and with the foundation that we have to get this team back to winning. And it's not a dysfunctional top to bottom organization the way, like something like the Jets are, or maybe even the Jaguars are.
Right. Texans, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think the Jags, there's a ton of advantages there, but people miss that you don't have all those draft picks and all that money in a vacuum, right? You have it, but you may have an owner who definitely, he said something about wanting roster control at some point, and the coach is coming in and, he's going to be more powerful than the GM. So there are all sorts of situations across the league, and the Falcons, in comparison to a lot of them, it's a pretty good landing spot, and I just hope that he can make the most of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've always thought it was a desirable job, and I think the ownership angle makes a big difference more than a lot of outsiders realize. And it helps when you're going against the Jets, who are known for being a dumpster fire. It helps when you're going against the Jaguars and have an owner who's, nice enough to come out and say straight up to the media that he's going to have final roster control and really throw that into the fire. And to have the Houston Texans, who are just, routinely shooting themselves in the foot by pissing off their star quarterback to the point where he might not even be there anymore. He's the reason to go to Houston. There is no other reason to go to Houston other than the fact that they have a star quarterback under contract for the foreseeable future. And they might not even have that anymore. So I don't know who the hell they're expecting to hire, but that helped obviously make the Falcons more desirable overall. But I think even in a stronger year, this is an ownership situation that a GM wants to come into, because even sometimes to a fault, we've seen Arthur Blank be loyal to his people and want them to succeed and give them opportunities. So if I'm a GM, this is a very desirable place, because I don't have to worry about getting canned for one bad year. This is not something that's going to happen in Atlanta. So that's a benefit that the team has. Did anybody else want to weigh in on that? The Falcons as a desirable spot. Yeah, go ahead.
I did just want to say that I now realize that I was frozen for like 4 minutes there, so yeah. I apologize to everyone.
No, that was fun. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
So Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the audio was coming through, so that was fine. Yeah. Did you have something, Eric?
I agree with Dave there. I think part of that, I mean, just reading in between the lines, I think part of that came off as him knowing in the back of his mind that in all likelihood he would be the next GM in line in New Orleans. So he's not. It's kind of sort of like the Josh McDaniel situation with New England. You know, over the years we've seen like, hey, you know, McDaniels is not even really being tossed around as a candidate for head coaching jobs, and we kind of put two and two together, and it's like, oh, you know what? He's probably being groomed as Belichick's heir apparent. So I think it's the same thing. I think he knew that, but kudos on Blank for seeing that from afar and hopping on that immediately. Because I don't know if fans understand that, but that to me that can be a critical move that can kind of damper your rival, because now Loomis has to kind of sort of groom someone else. Kind of sort of have to start from scratch again. And in the midst of what they're getting ready to happen this offseason for the Saints, you know, that can be critical when you're talking 5, 10, 15 years down the line from now.
Yeah. I'm glad he came here. He seems like one of the big up and coming guys that really people didn't seem to know about until now. And I'd never heard of him, certainly. So
I haven't either, but looking at his background, I mean, it's pretty extensive and pretty respectable. But at the same time, I'm still trying to put this together. Like, and it's not the fact that he really worked for the Saints for that long, but he's really like Louisiana through and through. Like, he was born in Louisiana, went to high school in Louisiana, went to college in Louisiana. Like, he really has an interest in the Falcons. Like, I'm just still trying to put all that together. Like, that's just me. I'm not saying he's lying or anything, but I just thought I would never see the day where there's a true Louisianian, whatever, however you want to say it, is interested in coming aboard the Falcons organization. Like, that's,
yeah.
I can't. Can any one of you
I'm
guys?
shocked. Yeah.
Can any one of you guys picture someone from Atlanta that's been in Atlanta like literally their entire life, and all of a sudden they have interest in the Saints job?
I mean, if it was between that and not being a GM, you know, I'd probably take the Saints job. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah,
Just
I'm a
money
trader.
talks, man.
Oh, yeah, money talks. Yeah, and the fact that I can be
I can't
an NFL GM.
believe what I'm hearing here.
Yeah.
I'm disgusted.
Like,
You
if
see what
Mickey
you have
Loomis
from
knocked on my
Stafford?
door tomorrow, okay, and said, "Hey, Kevin, we love your show. We want you to come and be, you know, in our analytics department or something."
Yeah.
You think I would say no to that?
You know what, Dave? I think Kevin would sure enough leave and go to CSC if the right opportunity came.
That's not what I said. I said NFL job, okay, like analytics department, okay. Don't put that evil on me, okay. That's
Get him, Eric. Get him.
Yeah, but no, I mean, yeah, it would take an impressive offer from the Saints to lure me away from my cushy, you know, digs here at the Falcoholic. But you know, CSC, it would take an extravagant offer. You know, one would say that it would be, you know, comically large. That to pry me away from here, so large that I would guarantee that it's not possible. But I do want to get to
Good
some.
answer.
Yeah, good answer. Yeah. Good save. But there's a lot. I mean, Fontenot had a lot of noteworthy quotes. The biggest one, I think, that a lot of people latched on to was his draft philosophy, where he said you need to take the best player at every position. You should never say, "Oh, we're good there," and refuse to draft someone. And people have basically taken this quote and run with it, and it is supporting every single draft strategy that exists, much to the chagrin, I'm sure, of Eric, who's spent the last 2 weeks fighting off Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase at 4 and that sort of thing. Yeah.
No.
But DW, I'll let you take a crack at this. What are you reading into that comment? Does that mean anything to you, or is it just refreshing to hear someone that's actually going to evaluate every player in the draft and not just go into it saying we're going to take this position?
They're taking Mac Jones at 4.
Oh, hell yeah, brother.
I'm kidding. You guys can put the pitchforks down.
Yeah, everybody calm down. Relax.
Everyone calm down, have a drink. No, I think the I think it's legitimate. And this is going to be interesting because I joked on Twitter that, Falcons fans are screaming for BPA and, they're going to turn around and draft a wide receiver at number 4, and the entire Falcons Twitter is going to have a complete meltdown. But, I think it does mean that we may see things we haven't seen under Dimitrov. When they talked about Ozzie Newsome was someone that would trade back in the first round, unlike Dimitrov. Dimitrov never seemed to want to move backwards and acquire more draft capital. And, the thing to remember here with the Falcons is they have, I think, 31 players under contract for the 2021 season. They're 22 short of even just having, the starting day roster. Now, you're not going to fill all of those vacancies through the draft, but if you're looking to retool a franchise and get younger, the best way to do that is through the draft.
Yeah.
So, I think it means everything's on the board. Quarterback, quite possibly. Offensive tackle, I wouldn't rule it out. Defensive, absolutely. I think that's on the board. And trading back, I think, is a distinct possibility, especially when you hear that some of the teams, 4, 5, 6 picks back from us are very interested in grabbing one of these top 2 or 3 quarterbacks. So, I think the fact that this GM is thinking in a mindset that says, I just want to make the franchise better from a player quality standpoint and not just simply addressing needs, that alone is refreshing. And I think it's legitimate. Obviously, we're in the first minutes of this game and we need to see how it plays out. But I hope that they stick to that philosophy because, if you look at what Ozzie did for all of his years, he was clearly one of the greatest GMs of all time. And, if that's the model, I'm on board with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Evan, did you have any takes on that BPA comment? Does this, who are you standing now that everyone's on the table?
Before hearing that, I was on the very pro let's move back side, but I didn't know what his philosophy was on that. But now it seems like anything's a go, so that's kind of going to make it more fun, I think. But I think, it's one of those situations where they have just so many options that it's not a bad spot to be in. If they trade back, they're going to collect a lot of picks, and he's got a history with the Saints of being able to draft well later on. So that wouldn't be a terrible thing. But if they stay at 4 and take a quarterback, that also makes sense. You add, look towards the future. If they went with Sewell or something random, that would be fun. But I don't know how that would exactly work. But the other thing too is when he says best player available, I don't think that necessarily means that's what he's going to do with his first draft. He could just be because best player available to him might be somebody who's best, not best player available to you. Somebody watching might think Wilson's the best player available and, think, oh, well, that's who they're taking. But he's the Saints had a pretty good investment in their offensive line. Maybe Sewell's the best player in his mind. Also with Arthur Smith being a former offensive line coach and offensive lineman, that might play into it. I don't know. But that's the thing. I think the BPA thing, it's fun and stuff, but don't get too hung up on it because he only had one press conference. We definitely don't know. It's still January, so there's plenty of time for players to rise and fall. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of time, and I'm still very much on they're probably going to take a quarterback train. This comment to me doesn't really move the needle. I'm appreciative of it, certainly. I think that's a good strategy to have. I don't think you should ever arbitrarily just take a position off the board. But I think any player you draft you need to have a plan for, certainly. But it sounds like Fontenot does, plan on scouting the entire draft class and will have a plan for these guys. And you mentioned it. Arthur Smith's an offensive line coach. We could see an early pick of a player like Penei Sewell, who is ostensibly a tackle in college, but maybe Arthur Smith sees him as a Brandon Scherf or a Quentin Nelson level guard to complement Jake Matthews, and wants to plug him in there and really just completely take this offensive line from a average to a elite level. I think that pick is absolutely more on the table now with Arthur Smith in the building. We know how he builds around the offensive line and how important that is to him. So that is something to keep an eye on. I don't think wide receivers on the board at 4. I'm just going to be honest with people. Like, I really don't think that's an option. I do think that this is a GM that is going to be willing to trade down. The Saints weren't really a team that ever traded down for the most part. They were very aggressive. But I think that also had to do with where they were as a team, right? Where this is a team that was in a window that needed to win now. They were trying to go and get a few key contributors instead of stockpiling resources for the future, because they're just going to have to blow it all up anyway now. So here in Atlanta, it's a different story. Obviously, they would like to compete in 2021, but I don't think they're expecting this team to be a Super Bowl contender in 2021. I think if anyone expects this team to just be a Super Bowl contender, calm down a little bit on that. But I appreciate the willingness to take these types of players. And I think people probably should not focus so much on number 4 and focus more on the second round and focus more on the third round and those types of picks where everyone's honing in on edge and corner and safety and those types of things. And don't be surprised by a shocker pick there. Like, don't be surprised by a second round wide receiver. This is a really deep class with some quality guys in that range. So we're all going to have to be on our toes, because we were all getting pretty good at predicting what Dimitrov was going to do in the draft. I mean, I think over the course of Eric and I's mock drafts, we probably mocked almost every player that they would end up drafting in a given year over the course of like 20 mock drafts, because look, like they had a prototype and they would go out and get it. But it's a whole new world under Terry Fontenot, and I'm excited to see who they target. But Evan's right. They absolutely have to nail this draft, because they're not going to have a lot of flexibility to add veterans. We saw a report yesterday where PFT is projecting the cap to go down to 180 million. I still don't think that's going to happen, by the way, but this is an article now putting a number on it. That would be a disaster for the Falcons and for like 10 other teams. They would be really strapped against the cap, and they would probably need to rely on a lot of UDFA contracts and a lot of rookie contracts to get under and field a 53-man roster at that point. So it's a sketchy situation, but I'm confident that Fontenot can handle it. And we've been hearing rumors about him bringing potentially some other Saints executives over. None of that's official yet, but I am interested to see if he ends up snagging anyone else from the Saints before this is all said and done, and just continue to rob the Saints of their top people. So maybe this is like a reverse hit, Eric. Like, this is not we're going to destroy the Falcons. It's actually like we're going to destroy the Saints by just taking all their best people and coming to Atlanta. So did you ever consider that?
I didn't, but you might be on to something.
Yeah, maybe this is the long game by Fontenot, but in reverse.
They do have some notable free agents this offseason, guys. Like Marcus Williams, Trey Hendrickson. Yeah.
Could happen. Could happen. Yeah.
Good.
But yeah, I really do like Fontenot, and I enjoyed his press conference a lot. I think it was fantastic. Did anyone else have any comments on Fontenot or his press conference to get in here before we switch gears a little bit?
Nope.
All righty. Well, let's move on to Arthur Smith's conference, because we did talk about Arthur Smith. I think everyone here had a chance to weigh in on that one. Eric, did you have a chance to weigh in on Arthur Smith yet? I don't know if you were there on Friday. You did on, I guess, Sunday maybe, but yeah.
Yeah. I weighed in on on Sunday, and I did catch most of his press conference. So I mean, what I heard and saw in the press conference is pretty much what I thought of him and what I expected to hear. It's and I saw some were kind of turned off already by his personality, I guess. But who cares? I mean, hell, to be honest with you, Bill Belichick has a dull personality also, but the man wins games and championships. That's all we care about here, right? So, Arthur Smith is a very smart individual, man. He really knows his X's and O's. I know he was only in Tennessee for, a handful of years, But this guy worked his way up the ranks. And again, we brought it up a lot, especially in our group chat. He worked with 3 different coaching regimes in Tennessee. You don't really see that. You don't see an assistant coach being passed over. I mean, hell, he just walked in today and just kicked all the coaching assistants out of the building pretty much. And he lasted 3 coaching terms. So that's pretty impressive. But yeah, everything that I saw and heard from this press conference was pretty spot on.
Yeah, yeah. I did like his conference. I mean, it was a little. I mean, compared to Fontenot, it was like extremely dry. But like, look, it was fine. Like, this guy's here to coach your football team. He's a first-time head coach. He's not used to the media spotlight. He's not used to giving press conferences. It's just not his cup of tea. And after Dan Quinn, honestly, it's a little bit refreshing in my opinion. Like, this is clearly a football guy. He's a coach. He's not the face of the team. He's not comfortable doing that yet. I don't care. Like,
I don't. Do we really need him to be at this point? I mean,
no. I think Fontenot can clearly handle that job. So,
I mean, but the guy really hasn't even looked over the roster yet,
right.
So he doesn't even know what his roster is going to look like. 3 months from now, compared to give him time, let him get settled in. I mean, the guy he's still making his way around the building at this point. So I mean, just he's going to be fine. I will say this. Just from what he presented and what Fontenot presented, I already can tell that they're on the same page, because they're looking at it from a perspective of, we need to fix the roster from top to bottom, not just we need to improve here and improve there and improve here. They say they're coming into it saying, hey, we need to look over the entire scope of the roster, from the starters to the undrafted free agents, and see what we need to do, how we need to improve. And that I can appreciate.
Yeah. And I know Dave is on a little bit of a timeline here, so I know we haven't gotten DW's thoughts at all on Arthur Smith yet, so we're going to go to DW in just a second, but I did want to give Dave a chance to weigh in on Arthur Smith's press conference, and if there was anything in there that stood out to you, Dave, that you wanted to comment on before you have to get out of here.
Yeah, I don't want to rob DW, a fellow beautiful bald man, of his time, but I will say that, I thought what was interesting about him is that he's already clearly ready to be a head coach, because he was really good at taking very specific questions and either deflecting them or just not answering them. Like, several times it was like, Arthur Smith, tell me exactly which players you're going to get rid of. And he was like, well, we got a lot of players here, and we're going to look at all of them. So that he's ready to go from that perspective, and I respect that. But I also was impressed that, like, this is clearly a guy who means business and has, again, like Fontenot, has a plan, and he knows what he wants to do. And, when he was talking about accountability, we're going to drop the entitlement. He kind of caught himself and said, not that that was going on here, but that's something that's been brought up a lot about the Falcons, right? Is that some players felt entitled. Jeff Schultz at The Athletic has written about that several times. And, I think there's probably something to that for it to keep coming up. And it might have been something that he heard in the interview process. It might not have been, who knows? But I really think his plan is to come in here and build a bulldozer of a team. That's really what he wants to do. He's going to hold players accountable. He said he wants to be accountable himself with wins and losses, and that, every year the team is going to change significantly, and they're just going to have to be adaptable. And I think after the last few years, especially, post 2018, post 2019, when we just kept getting really more of the same, from people who weren't willing to give up on what was here and the dream of replicating a Super Bowl that wasn't coming back, which is really what happened. Yeah. Getting somebody in here who's talking about shaking things up and being comfortable with them being shaken up over and over again is really refreshing. So, he might not be the most dynamic guy. He might look like Nicolas Cage, right after he's stolen the Declaration of Independence and National Treasure, but I like Arthur Smith. I think he'll be a good coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for coming on, Dave. I don't know if you have to go right now, but I wanted to give you a chance. He's Dave at the Falcoholic. Dave, did you want to plug anything before you had to get out of here?
Just, stick with us. Tomorrow morning, we're going to look at some Saints free agents, boo hiss, who, might come over with Terry Fontenot joining the team. There's some interesting names on that list. And, I know the gang has got a ton of good articles coming on, what this coaching staff and front office might do and what's ahead for free agency and the draft. So just, always keep reading us, always keep watching us, and we'll always be watching you. Always.
Only a little bit creepy, Dave. I appreciate that. It's just the right amount. Just the right amount.
Yeah, it's the delivery.
It's really the delivery that makes it. Yeah. Thank you again for coming on, Dave. We appreciate your time.
No problem. Take it easy, guys.
Yes. Hashtag Dave Meat, folks. There he is. All right, DW. Yes, I know we haven't had a chance to ask you yet about your thoughts on the Arthur Smith hiring at all. So go ahead and give me your thoughts on Arthur Smith. And if you have any notes from the press conference you want to get out there, feel free to add those as well.
Yeah, let me say this. The one thing out of the press conference that jumped out, I do think the accountability angle is critical. We saw even after Dan Quinn was gone, a notable change in the play of several players. I think about guys like Deion Jones, who suddenly seemed to come to life again. I think that's intentional. I think they saw this roster from afar and thought, we've got some guys who we need to ride them consistently, make sure that they know their position is never 100% secure. I really liked that. I also like the fact that he said he's not going to, bring in a bunch of yes men. I've been on teams, organizations where you have people, you have a leader and everyone down the chain just echoes what that person says. Those groups tend to stagnate over time. They tend to not innovate. They tend to stifle out, new ideas. And the fact that he's addressing that and saying he's going to have dissenting opinions on his coaching staff, I think is a huge deal. Now, as for my personal opinion of Arthur Smith, I was telling you guys before we got on the show here that I watched 8 Titans games this weekend from the 2020 season. Because I wanted to see the offense myself. And let me tell you, I could not be more excited for what he's going to do with Atlanta. People talk a lot about Derrick Henry, and rightfully so, fantastic player. I saw quite a few times where it was the offensive line opening up just massive running lanes for Henry. And obviously he took advantage of that. But a lot of this has to do with the scheme that he was running in the wide zone and setting up. The thing that really struck me is what Shanahan used to do. Shanahan would show you a look early in the game, and he would run out of that look, pick up 3, 4, 5 yards, and he would show you that look 2 or 3 more times, and he would have a pass to a tight end, an out to a wide receiver, a crossing route to another wide receiver. You never knew what was coming. And it was like he was reading the defense. He knew when they were going to bite on play action, and that's when he would call a play action. And all of a sudden, those linebackers are, they're 5 feet closer to the box than they should be. Where they should be in the middle of those passing lanes, those guys have bit for that run. And that is play calling. That is Arthur Smith knowing how to manipulate those other guys on that side of the ball. The thing that blew me away was the number of times I saw their top receiver where you saw A.J. Brown somehow get one-on-one coverage. We rarely see Julio get that. But you would see that he would manipulate that safety that's usually supposed to be there for that over-the-top coverage to help that double with Julio, or for A.J. Brown in the case of the Titans.
Yeah.
And using the formations, using motion, using those receiving tight ends, he's pulling that safety away and creating a one-on-one matchup for his top receiver. And did that consistently. And that defense would not figure out a way to adjust to it. It was a brilliantly run offense. It reminded me, now there are differences between what he does and what Shanahan does. Mm-hmm. I do find it very interesting that their 4th highest targeted player was their 2nd tight end. So he loves using 2 tight end sets in Tennessee, which makes you wonder, what kind of role Russell Gage may have, or if they're going to adapt to the personnel here. But I'll tell you, from what I saw in these Titans games, we may have gotten one of the best up and coming play callers in the league, and he's running our team now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've always, as Terry Fontenot said, admired him from afar. And what always stood out to me about Arthur Smith was his creativity, and I think also folks need to remember that like this is not going to be an alien scheme to Matt Ryan. This is a scheme that at its heart is pretty similar to Kyle Shanahan's scheme. It's not drastically different. I'm sure the verbiage and the terms that he's going to use and that sort of stuff is all different. It's Marvel characters, apparently, according to his press conference, which is also very cool. But, you know, and I'm going to do an article about this tomorrow. A lot of fans have been obsessed about, well, it was Derrick Henry. You know, he needs a Derrick Henry. We got to get him a Derrick Henry. He made it clear in his press conference that he doesn't need a Derrick Henry. He used Derrick Henry because they had him. Like, of course, when you have a Derrick Henry, you're going to run this man into the ground because he's an incredible talent. But that's not necessary. I mean, this wide zone can work with a variety of running backs. You don't need a Derrick Henry prototype to run it. Devontae Freeman, 4th round pick, ran the wide zone to great effect with Kyle Shanahan. We've seen many different running backs have success in this role. You know, Aaron Jones in Green Bay, they run kind of more of a multiple zone with with a lot of inside zone mixed in. But again, that's a 5th round pick. Like, you can get a lot of running backs that can succeed in this scheme. You don't need Derrick Henry to do it. Like, have you seen the running backs Kyle Shanahan trots out every week? Like,
if there's anything that I guess would fit this scheme, you will more likely want a running back that is versed in those type of schemes. A guy that can run inside zone, a guy that can run outside zone, a guy that can be able to adapt as a running back. You don't necessarily need a 6'3", 250-pound running back in order to make this scheme work. I don't know why people believe that, but that is far from it. They just it's great to have someone like Derrick Henry, and he led the league in rushing the past 2 years. But I think this was a situation where the scheme that they had so happened to have a lightning in the bottle at running back.
yeah,
If you would have put, I don't know, you'd have put Devontae Freeman back there, I guarantee you Devontae Freeman probably would have had 1,000 yards.
you probably would have had like 1,200 yards minimum. Yeah.
I would have had 1,200 yards.
Yeah. So,
Todd Gurley may have gotten 1,000 yards.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
And to that point, Eric, I don't know if you saw this as well. A lot of Henry's yards came in the second half of games where he was beating the hell out of those linebackers. And here's the other thing I like about Arthur Smith. He doesn't just stretch the field vertically. He stretches it horizontally. He forces those linebackers to cover sideline to sideline, and he is wearing those guys out. Those linebackers, those safeties covering these tight ends and again, he loves using tight ends as his receivers. He's forcing these guys to run sideline to sideline. When he gets into the second half, that's when you see him start abusing them. It was just brilliant. And, again, I'm not taking away from Henry, but like Eric said, I just think it's way overstated, this idea that you have to have a prototypical back to succeed in the system. Arthur Smith was manipulating the hell out of that defense every single week, and he was doing to them things they didn't want done.
Yeah. That's one way to put it. Yeah.
Imagine, take someone like Travis Etienne from Clemson and put him in this scheme. Now, to be quite honest, Etienne he's not 6'3", 250, but the fact that he can be able to get to the second level so fast and get to the secondary so fast, he may even have better production down the line than Derrick Henry. This is not a Derrick Henry scheme. This is a scheme that just so happened to have a thoroughbred at running back, and they used them well enough. That's all it was.
Honestly, Derrick Henry's kind of the rare big back with that sort of speed and explosiveness. I mean, most wide zone backs aren't that size. Like, they're Devontae Freeman size. Like, don't think that, like, usually backs of Henry's size are usually gap power guys. They're going to do one cut and go. They're not running sideline to sideline. But
you're looking at the huddle and you're saying, "Oh, they're running 3 tight ends." No, that's a running back there.
Yeah, that just reminds me of that Mark Ingram picture. That's the best picture, man. He's just looking up at him like, "Oh, hell no."
Oh, 2 tight ends and a running back. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
You guys know my favorite story ever behind that Mark Ingram picture?
you're gonna tell us. I hope. Yeah.
So it got to this point where Mark Ingram, whenever he posted like a tweet, people would only post that picture at him, and he was so bothered by it, he would like hide it every single time. So you go into the like hidden like tweets, and it's just like 30 tweets of just that picture over and over again.
That's amazing. And speaking of, Adnan Nikic has joined the show. I know some astute viewers noticed, the pop-up on the screen. Adnan, we haven't gotten a chance to get your opinion on Terry Fontenot yet, so I wanted, if you had quick thoughts on him before we get back to Arthur Smith, I wanted to give you a chance. Yeah.
All I'm wondering is why he hasn't traded Matt Ryan yet.
Yeah.
It's been 24 hours. Time is ticking at this point. We need a replacement. We need to bring in someone who doesn't have a noodle arm.
Yes,
give us a nice
very
Russian
important.
quarterback.
That value is getting lower by the day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not getting any younger. In fact, he's getting even older. That's how time works.
I just don't know if there's any science to support that.
No, in all honesty, though, Terry Fontenot, he won the press conference. He was absolutely fantastic in that press conference. He was genuine. He had those wonderful moments, particularly when he was talking about Vaughn McClure, was one that really stood out to me. And bringing his kids out in Falcons gear, that's a really nice touch. And it's a really nice way to calm those voices of, oh, he's a spy sent by the deep south, the deep state saints, which I don't know if Eric still believes that or not, but
it's possible. All right, we're not going to kill it yet. It's possible.
That's fair, I guess. It's not. But yeah, it's Terry Fontenot was like great, and it's great that it was a great ringing endorsement from Mickey Loomis saying that he was grooming Fontenot to be his own replacement eventually with the Saints. So it was a great way to kind of screw over the Saints in the future. Fontenot said all the right things, and I'm really excited to see where he goes with this team. There's also that talk that he may get that salary cap specialist from the Saints, which would really piss Sean Payton off. So that would be a haul. That would be a great get.
Oh yeah, I'd be excited about that as well. Did you have anything you wanted to add on Arthur Smith while we got you on the mic here?
Yeah, I mean, Arthur Smith, I said everything that I wanted to say about him in our reaction show to him. He's not amazing in the press conference. I mean, some blogs think that he's already a failure as the head coach as a result of that. But I'm really excited. I can't really add much more to what DW said. He spent the last 72 hours just hauled in at home watching Titans games over and over, one after the other. So I'm genuinely excited for his scheme. His message on accountability was something that really resonated, because this team, it feels like, hasn't really had much accountability in the past 5-6 years, since Dan Quinn came and since Mike Smith was there as well. The talk about innovation, innovative offenses, the talk about adapting was really a breath of fresh air, especially since we haven't adapted once on offense or defense in the last 3 or 4 years. So I feel like it'll be a great era, and I feel like Arthur Blank really at this point hit it out of the park. I mean, what we see on the field is what we'll judge it by, but right now we can only judge it by what we heard in the press conference. And I heard a lot of great stuff in that press conference.
Yeah, it was very exciting, extremely exciting. And for those that were still wondering, Arthur Smith did confirm that he will be calling the plays in his press conference. I know there was some stupid report out there from somebody that was like, oh, maybe he won't call the plays. Maybe he'll give him over to Dave Ragone from the Bears. Yeah, no. Arthur Smith's going to call the plays. That's why he was hired in part. Another reason I think he was hired in part, and something that really stood out to me, was a word that kept coming up over and over and over again in that conference was his adaptability. And he made it clear, and this is something that we've really clamored for on this show, is modern coaching is building a scheme to fit the players you have or the players you're planning to acquire. old school coaching is this is our scheme and you need to get with the program and we're going to run this scheme. I don't care if we have 380-pound wide receivers. We're running, 4 verts with like a bunch of crossers and you're going to have to go over the middle against these huge safeties and get clobbered. So like he made it clear, like what I did in Tennessee, like don't assume that's what my offense will look like in Atlanta, because I tailored that offense to fit what we had in Tennessee. We had big wide receivers, we had some good tight ends, and we had Derrick Henry. So guess what? I threw to A.J. Brown and Corey Davis. I ran the hell out of Derrick Henry, and I used those 2 tight ends. Like, and that's basically what he did. And what he said was, look, we're gonna adapt. Like he said, their foundation is wide zone in the run game, but he's going to change it. Like he made it clear that he doesn't need a Derrick Henry. He's going to go out and probably get the best running back he can, whether that's, Najee Harris or Javonte Williams or Chuba Hubbard or, Kenneth Gainwell, who's completely different from those other guys in terms of his size. Like, it's going to be adaptable. And I think that's really important for this team. So Evan, I wanted to give you a chance to weigh in on that. What do you think about that adaptability and how his offense might look in Atlanta versus how it looked in Tennessee?
I mean, I think it's kind of early to tell, but I think he's got much better talent in Atlanta he can play with. Obviously, A.J. Brown and Corey Davis are not awful or anything, but I think Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley are an upgrade there. As Eric was talking about, you don't have to have a Derrick Henry, but maybe they look in free agency at like a Mike Davis or somebody who can kind of play that role. Maybe they go with 2 running backs, kind of like how we did with Freeman and Coleman years ago. I don't know. It's kind of up in the air because it's like Derrick Henry was such a large part of it, but having Derrick Henry also made Ryan Tannehill better because, like I mentioned before the show, like I didn't realize Ryan Tannehill had 7 rushing touchdowns. That just seems like such an absurd amount. And this is Ryan Tannehill, who was literally like thrown out of Miami because they thought he was like garbage, and he
Adam Gase
basically had his career. He had his career turned around in Tennessee. I think he had like 33 passing touchdowns and like 7 interceptions, which is a solid year for a quarterback. But yeah, I mean, overall, I just don't know how the offense is going to work, but it's also exciting because I feel like he could literally just be like, go out there and do something, and it would be a better offense already just because there's some sort of instruction. The offense we're used to has just been vanilla and boring and predictable. Hopefully no 2nd and 10 runs. I'm excited for the offense overall.
Yeah, me too.
I hear exactly what you're saying, Evan, and I agree. We should bring in Tannehill to replace Matt Ryan as our quarterback.
Trade for Tannehill. That's what Adnan is taking away from all this. All right, you heard it here, folks. No, I mean, it's very exciting. I love the adaptability. I think that I think if you look at Atlanta's scheme and, the type of players Atlanta has and this offense, like, it's probably going to be, more of a wide zone approach. I know that Smith mixed in some gap power stuff and some inside zone in Tennessee. I think this offensive line is probably built more to do wide zone stuff with the athleticism that they have. I think it's also going to be a more pass heavy offense. And that has to do with Matt Ryan being a much better overall passer than Tannehill. Tannehill's very efficient, but he's not a guy that you want throwing 30 times a game. I mean, you want him to throw the ball 20, 25 times max. And hope that Derrick Henry gets like 25 carries, and that's your offense. So I think that this will be a more pass-heavy attack under Matt Ryan with Arthur Smith here. I think that the running game will actually be a functional part of the offense that actually adds something instead of just being a wasted down most of the time. So that is going to be big. But
so you do think they're gonna put the ball in the air?
I mean, I think it's going to be closer to like Kyle Shanahan levels of offensive balance than like what it was in Tennessee. Where, I mean, it might even be more like it might be 60-40 pass run here. Whereas in Tennessee, it was more like 55-45 and that sort of thing. So I think that he's adaptable. I think he knows that the strength of this team is likely to be the passing game, at least in 2021. And I think the run game is going to be a part of it, is a much bigger part than it was under Dirk Cutter. But I still think the passing game is going to be the focus because you've got Matt Ryan, you've got Julio Jones, you've got Calvin Ridley, and I find it hard to believe any running back they find is going to upstage those guys, at least not in 2021.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't want to. It's still early, so we don't really know what the offense is going to look like. But I think this may be a year where we actually see Matt throwing the ball maybe 25 times a game, to be honest with you.
I mean, that worked out great for him in 2016. I think that's about what he averaged in terms of attempts per game.
A great mixture of play action in there. Because I pointed out before on Twitter, he's had 6 or 7 seasons of over 600 passing attempts, and Cutter has been the coordinator for like 5 of them.
Yeah.
And I think out of those 5 seasons, they've only had like 1 playoff season.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what we're getting at is we love Matt. Everybody except Matt, man. He doesn't. He despises him.
Yeah.
We love Matt, but we love Matt better when he's not throwing the ball 40 times a game. I think this may be. Yeah. I think this may be a season where you may not have your Derrick Henry, but like you pointed out, this may be a 2-back system. Mm-hmm. And we're going to see some games where Matt's going to be throwing the ball 25, 28 times a game. I think it works better that way because you get the upgrade at receiver. You go from A.J. Brown to Julio Jones. You go from Corey Davis to Calvin Ridley. Now implement the whole play action and getting those guys in a ton of one-on-one situations. And I think, I mean, from that aspect alone, the passing offense can be just as deadly, if not even better, than what they had in Tennessee. But I that's just my opinion. I think he's going to dial it back a little bit this year.
He'll absolutely dial it back from Cutter. I mean, Cutter's passing volume was just stupid. But it's because the run game was basically a wasted down, and I think he kind of tacitly acknowledged that by having Matt Ryan throw, 35, 40 times on average a game. So that's too many passing attempts. I just think it's going to be more passing attempts than Ryan Tannehill. And I also think that, where Tennessee got into trouble, especially, was that defense was bad. And if they got behind, they weren't a team that was really built to, pull off a lot of big comebacks. Matt Ryan's more equipped to do that. The Falcons will be more equipped to do that.
I think that's what this team could be. That's something that
I think so too.
In that favor for Arthur Smith. Hey, he can say, hey, you know what? If we need a shootout type offense, I got the personnel to do that.
Yeah. Well, DW, what do you think the offense is going to look like? I mean, we've been going back and forth on it. Do you have any inklings of where this might be headed?
Well, I'm looking at Tannehill's stats. He had 481 attempts, which is roughly 30 per game.
Yeah.
So, to your point, it's, far less than the 600 that Matt has been tossing, under Cutter since 2012. I do think they're going to try to focus more on the run. The other thing to keep in mind here as well is it's, and I saw this in some of the Tennessee games where they kept playing from behind, so they had to pass a little bit more at times than they wanted to. In the games where they were ahead, they certainly ran a lot in the second half, but there were a few instances where they kept letting teams like the Jaguars and the Vikings stay in the game, and they just couldn't put them away because their defense was a problem. So, for me, it's going to depend as well on what the Falcons defense can do in 2021. That's going to dictate a little bit of, what the Falcons do on offense. If, we're in the same situation where we keep ending up behind, or we're, neck and neck with the team, the Falcons may be inclined to pass more simply because of situational football. But if we can establish the run earlier in the game, which is something Cutter never did, I think we'll see more balance than we ever got with Dirk. And I don't think we'll get to perfect balance until we have a defense that is going to do a little bit better job of retaining leads and forcing the other team to, have some 3 and outs and giving us the ability to pad some leads instead of, constantly chasing after them. So I think it's going to be a multi-pronged approach. I think this offense in year one may still be pass heavy, but I think as the team grows, if the defense gets better, I think you'll see it become a more balanced unit over time.
I thought we were going to take Najee Harris at number 4 and then just pound the rock.
Anything to get the ball out of that bum Matt Ryan's hands, right, Adnan?
Hey, now you're speaking my language.
Exactly.
I don't know. Eric and I were going back and forth on Twitter. Apparently, they only let you draft running backs once a century. By the way, people were talking about.
There's very specific rules for this. So.
Yeah, that's it. They only have one pick in this year's draft, and they got to get it right, or else.
I've often said this. Yeah, Adnan, did you have something you wanted to add there?
No, I was just gonna say that I don't know. People may start to actually think that I don't like Matt Ryan. Like,
we got to be careful with this bit. We got to be careful. Yeah.
I got to be careful not to overdo it.
Right.
At this point, it's like I don't want Sarah Ryan like adding me on Twitter or anything like that, saying,
well, it could be good for your brand, Yeah. You could pull off like a Stephen A. Smith sort of mythos, Yeah. Pass. Okay. Yeah. I wouldn't want that smoke either, to be fair, but, but yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. I think it's very interesting, the sorts of things we're going to see under Arthur Smith. We got Guy Fieri, aka Solaire, with $3. Thank you, brother, for your support. We appreciate you. He says, hiring a Titans offensive coordinator who uses the Shanahan system along with an aging former MVP quarterback. We're about to be the worst 13-3 team in league history, baby. Let's go. Packers 2.0. Here we come. Yeah, and I do think Solaire has a point here. Like, I don't know that 13-3 is on the table for the Falcons, but this is a team that will be a hot pick to rebound. We talked about it last week. They were 0-7 in games decided by 6 points.
I do just want to say 13-3 may not be out on the table, but 13-4 may be on the table.
Now you're talking, buddy. Now you're talking 13-4, that extra
17 game season.
Hey, I didn't think about that. That's important. But this is a team that's going to be a trendy bounce back pick. New coaching staff, arguably one of the hottest candidates in the league in Arthur Smith, a GM that's probably going to be making headlines for how impressive he is. I expect this to be a pretty explosive offseason, if what we've seen so far is any indication. I don't think it's out of the question for this team to be competitive next year. I don't know. 13-3 I think is a little aggressive. Solaire, I appreciate the onions there. But yeah, what do you guys think? Is this, are you expecting this team to kind of flirt with a winning record again in 2021, like right off the bat?
I think we'll be a playoff team, calling it.
Okay, there you go. Hot takes out the gate. Yeah. What do you got, DW?
So if you look at the number of close games the Falcons were in and the fact that they lost every single one of them.
Don't remind me.
Yeah. Well, there's this tendency in the NFL that teams tend to move back to the mean. And close games usually are 50-50 for NFL clubs. And I think they had, I want to say 6 or 7 close games that were within a touchdown that they lost. So if you split those, the Falcons are a 7 or 8 win team. And I think, statistically, you look at them, they're sort of middle of the road. And they were middle of the road with an offensive coordinator who literally, was calling an offense from the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. So I think just simply making improvements in scheme with this, most of this roster back can yield another win or two, which makes them, a 10-win team, and that potentially puts them in the playoffs. So I don't think it's out of a stretch to think that this current roster can be much better than they were just by a coaching turnover. And if you add some of the right pieces, maybe it pushes that a little bit further. So,
yeah, that's a good point. Eric, I heard you saying something as well. Did you want to get a take in there?
I'm not throwing records out there until I see this draft class.
That's fair.
I want to see it because like DW brought up earlier, the fact that they only have 31 players, they literally are going to have to build pretty much half a roster this offseason. And it's going to take a lot of work. So I want to see what that looks like. Ask me again in training camp. At the beginning of training camp, ask me. I'll probably have a record for you by then. A projection.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I think I think this team is certainly gonna. I don't think it's outlandish at all to say they'll probably have a winning record. But in the 17-game season, that could be 9-8. So there's a lot of opportunity for that to happen. I think they're gonna get better. Certainly.
They do have a better schedule next year than they did
Yes,
this
they
year.
do.
That's
They do.
a fourth place schedule next year. I mean,
Yeah.
we get the 49ers who have quarterback questions. We get the Lions who have quarterback questions. We get the Jags who have one winning season. Huh?
We get Urban Meyer.
Yeah, we get the Jags who have one winning season in the past 45 years. So that'll be a nice boon. I think is that the week 7 or is that the 17th game or the week 17 game?
It's just the 17th game. I don't know what week of the season it'll
17th
be.
game. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, it's a fourth place schedule, and 9 and 8 could get you into the playoffs because there's still 7 teams and going into it next year as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you should expect the Falcons to be better. If they're not better, we're going to be facing some significant questions a year from now. I don't think we're going to be in that situation. I'm pretty confident we're not going to be 4-12 again because it's going to be impossible to be 4-12 again in a 17-game season. So, you can't freezing cold takes me on that one. Freezing cold takes, but they're going to be better. The question is how much better and how quickly. And Fontenot and Arthur Smith have both made it clear that this is a multi-year plan. They're not just focusing on 2021. Evan, did you want to get a take in there as well?
I was just going to mention the history of it, that the last time the Falcons went 3 straight seasons without making the playoffs was 2013 to 2015. So 2016 was the 4th year. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I'm completely against. No offense, Evan. I'm completely against ever looking at the history of anything again because it's just gotten worse and worse. At first, it's Matt Ryan every even-numbered year has this amazing season, and then it's the Falcons in every election year have this amazing season, and now it's gotten down to after 3 losing seasons, then the Falcons have a great season. So. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm over the history of things. Let's just do it. Let's just do it on the field.
Do the damn thing.
Why'd you put that out there, Evan? You knew someone was going to take that and run with it.
Well, for what it's worth, they haven't gone 4 or more seasons without making the playoffs since 1990, and that's the year I was born. So
that's a nice shot to DW right there.
Damn.
Before that, I think they missed 9 straight seasons without making the playoffs. But so I am the gift to the Falcons franchise.
You are. Okay.
Yeah, and DW watched all 9 of those years, probably. Am I right?
I've been watching football since the 1920s. So
back when they used to play, with an actual pigskin, and it wasn't even in the shape of an oblong.
We would throw actual pigs. We would bring baby pigs to the field and throw them. So
that's a lot of tequila, DW.
My goodness.
Yeah, no idea.
Well, we're gonna be on here for a little bit longer, guys. If anyone has any final donations or questions they want to get in, throw those down so we have a chance to get to those before the end of the show. Thank you guys so much for your support, and also please do like the show and subscribe if you haven't already. Both of those help us out in a big way, help other folks find us on the YouTubes. We really appreciate that, and also check us out on Patreon if you're interested in supporting the show. Getting access to our exclusive patron Q&A that's going to be happening, I believe. It's going to be next Friday is when we're honing in on. So if you're interested in taking part in that, make sure you're a patron by next week so that I can invite you to that. Otherwise, if you cut it too close, I might forget to invite you. So you've been warned now. But I did want to touch on some potential coaches that have been floated for coordinators and other things for the Falcons. The big one, obviously, being former Titans defensive coordinator Dean Pease, very famous coach, obviously, could be coming out of retirement, potentially to join the Falcons as defensive coordinator or some other significant role. That could be a huge get. Anybody have a take on Dean Pease taking over the defense here?
Yeah, that definitely, of course, means 3-4 alignment. And I don't I don't expect Dean Pease to be a miracle worker in year one, given the personnel that he has now and how much that has to convert over to the 3-4s. So that's also going to be something critical that we're going to look at during the draft as well. But I guess when it comes to defensive coordinators, I mean, you look back at his time at Baltimore, and the guy's produced, man. I know he's a little up there in age, but I don't know if you can get any better than Dean Pease out there on the coaching market right now. Maybe Wade Phillips, but there's really no wrong choice between those two, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of Dean Pease. Obviously, took a year off, but in the year he was gone from Tennessee, that defense fell off a cliff. So. He's one of the most well-respected defensive minds in the league. I would be super excited to have him here in Atlanta. And maybe that would mean a scheme change. Maybe it wouldn't mean that. I mean, the Falcons, honestly, from playing the 4-3 under, basically have what they need to play a 3-4. They've got the nose tackle and Tyler Davison. They could play Grady and Deidrin Sanat as 3-4 defensive ends. I mean, like, Dante Fowler's already a better outside linebacker than he is an edge, or than he is a defensive end. So, like, they have and I'm not saying keep Alan Bailey. That's not what I'm saying. So don't misconstrue that. But, like, they're not that many pieces away from having a 3-4 personnel ready to go. So,
Well, how about if we bring in one of the former Titans defensive players by the name of Vic Beasley?
No.
We need an outside linebacker, you say? Yeah.
Yeah.
Titans great, Vic Beasley.
Arthur Smith is very familiar with Vic Beasley, having been in Tennessee with him. Not right when he signed, but a few weeks later, because he was buying a truck or something, which he posted on Instagram while he was dipping from training camp.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
So help me out here. When it comes to Dean Pease and his philosophy, his defensive philosophy, what is the main coverage that he's utilizing within it? Is it a cover 2 look, or are they doing more man principles, or what? Because
I think it's cover 2 man is generally what they run, but I could be wrong about that.
Because that's going to dictate a lot on the back end for what the Falcons have in the secondary now.
Yeah.
Which means you're going to see a lot more, as you pointed out, 2 deep coverage. And I don't know if anyone here trusts Keanu Neal on the back end playing deep zone coverage.
Not anymore.
I do not.
No.
I do not. We know they're going to draft at least one safety. It's probably need 2 if we're going to be playing that.
Yeah.
So
and don't put Ricardo Allen back there either. He's also very
no.
Yeah, I feel bad for Ricardo. Yeah, he is 6.25 million. Hell yeah, he's going to be cut.
Yeah. Given the cornerback situation, AJ Terrell had a hell of a year, but he's much better of a zone corner than he is a man corner. So
it might be cover 2 zone. I don't remember exactly, but it's cover 2 with. Maybe it's a mixed look. I don't know, but we'll see. I don't remember exactly if they do zone or man. It's probably a mix. I mean, most teams do a mix, but yeah. I mean, they're gonna need at least one safety back there. I like Jalen Hawkins. He doesn't have like the greatest range, but as a stopgap, he's probably okay.
I like it better as a deep cover strong safety than Keanu. No offense.
He's definitely a little bit more rangy.
But I like
that. Yeah. But like there's a lot of safeties in this class. Like you could double dip at safety on day 2 and then take another safety. Well, you could take a safety on day 2 and then take another safety on day 3. I've done it in mocks where they get like a Trayvon Morig or an Andre Cisco on day 2 and then come back and take like Reed Blankenship or something on day 3. That could be.
Or Fontenot can work a little magic and get Marcus Williams over to Atlanta.
How the hell are we paying that? Okay, how the hell are we paying Marcus Williams?
Hey, the man has worked with worse cap situations.
Well, if they get that cap guy from the Saints, anything's possible, I guess. So.
Yeah, but then we'll be $100 million in the hole in a few years if we keep doing stuff like that.
Yeah, we gotta be careful with that voodoo.
You wouldn't sacrifice that for a Super Bowl ring?
We're not. Did the Saints get a Super Bowl ring?
But we aren't the Saints, right? Yeah.
They got closer than the Falcons did. Let's just be honest.
Well,
I mean, technically,
technically,
the
no.
Falcons have been to a Super Bowl more recently than the Saints have.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey,
but yeah,
just being honest.
I mean, we're being honest.
These are
Like
the facts.
the Falcons got there in 2016 and lost, but the Saints didn't even get there since it's been a long time. So all of this $100 million in cap space was for naught. So
haven't been there since Bounty Gate.
Look, and we can go into the dynamics as far as why that didn't work, but I think we all know why that really didn't work. I mean, because you have Uncle Rico at quarterback. Like, of course, it's not
how much you want back and throw the ball over them mountains.
Exactly. Like, come on, man. That's the real reason why it didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, they were kind of in a bind there, a bind that the Falcons don't want to find themselves in, which is why they're probably going to take a quarterback at 4.
Quarterback, exactly.
Probably. So that's next week.
That's
now
you guys are speaking my language.
Yeah. Get that bum out of here. No, but go ahead.
I see folks asking about KZ. He's a free agent, and remember he had that Achilles injury. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think the team's going to bring him back. He wasn't playing well even before the injury. He was doing okay. So. Not the kind of guy that I think you go to bat for in free agency.
Nah. Now, if Dan Quinn and Dimitrov was here, of course he'll get probably a 3-year deal coming off his injury because they believe in his ability. But they're not here anymore, so they're probably. I think he's likely going to be out the door.
Yeah, I mean, look, if he's willing to sign like vet min to come back and be depth and try to earn a spot. Sure.
I mean, no offense, but let's be honest. He's probably not going to get a whole lot of suitors out there. If he does, I mean, he's not going to get any large money deals, even though I'm pretty sure he believes he will. But
I don't think he believes he'll get large money deals.
Not coming off that injury.
Thinks that they'll come on now.
I don't think his agent might say that to him, but his agent doesn't believe that.
Hey, we just dealt with an edge rusher who spent more time in the training room than the football field, and it felt like he deserved his 5th-year option. All right, so every player believes he's worth big money. Okay, let's be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure they do, but he's not going to get big money. So
he's not going to get it. He's
we'll see. I wouldn't rule it out him coming back on a cheap deal, but yeah, I mean, it's less likely now that the Falcons aren't retaining like Raheem Morris or anyone from the previous. Well, I guess we don't know exactly who they're retaining, but it seems like most of the defensive staff is on the way out. So, he's less likely to pop back up here, but we'll see what happens there. They definitely need safety help, and there are some free agent safeties out there. Marcus Williams being one of the most expensive options, obviously, but they may go in a different direction. They're probably going to have to bargain shop, and maybe they can find some guys that can fill that role at a cheaper price and help out, and also add someone in the draft. But they're going to be tight against the cap. We know this, and they're going to have to be really choosy with where they spend that free agency money, because is it going to be 5 to 6 mid-level veterans? Is it going to be 1 or 2 big veterans? And the rest, undrafted free agents and rookies, I don't know. But they're going to have to figure that out. That's up to those guys. They got a long time to look at the roster, and we got a long time to help you guys figure out who those targets might be and where the team might be looking in the draft. We got all offseason to do that, and we're going to continue to do that here on the Falcoholic Live and on thefalcoholic.com, where we have all that terrific written content. And also have to shout out DW for his fantastic work on our sister show, the Falcoholic Podcast. If you guys are looking for more in-depth Falcons coverage, that is a great show to check out. It's on the same feed as this show. If you subscribe on Stitcher and Spotify and all those great platforms, you can get access to both of these tremendous programs in audio format. Definitely listen to those episodes as well. And on that note, he is David Walker at Falcoholic DW on Twitter. DW, anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, we just put up our review of the Thomas Dimitrov 2016 season. Got Charles McDonald back on the show.
Nice.
So check that out. And we'll be doing the 2017 season coming up. Of course, draft content. I'm going to have to kidnap Eric and get him back on the podcast here very soon. to talk about some of the prospects on the defensive side of the ball, of course. Keep tuning in. We're going to be diving in. I will be talking with Charles again. We're going to talk about the Titans offense and what we saw. He also watched a bunch of games this weekend. So we're going to break that down even more on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely check that out, guys. All that good, tremendous content. And I know everyone's hounding for it now, so you're going to need to go check that out for sure. Also with us tonight, we have Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, anything you're working on you'd like to plug?
I just finished my series of offensive line review and our positional reviews with the centers and the guards the other day, so check that out.
Yeah, check that out as well, guys. Thank you, Adnan, for making time. I know you were coming in from class, so we appreciate you tuning in and helping us out. Also with us tonight, Eric Robinson. He is on Twitter at @Eric_Robinson. Eric, anything that you're working on you'd like to plug?
So column was just released yesterday, I believe, on Terry Fontenot and, him as, the new general manager and what he brings to the table for the Falcons going forward. Also be on the lookout next week. I will be on location at the Senior Bowl, watching and observing the practices. So be on the lookout. There will definitely be some columns coming your way sometime next week, just highlighting news and notes that I see. And maybe, if I see, I'm pretty sure I'll probably see some of the Falcons contingent there. We'll see who they're observing and who they're paying attention to and things of that nature. So definitely keep yourself, aware of what's going on next week with the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, definitely check that out, guys. Shout out to Eric for taking that on this year. I know next year we're talking about it. I think it would be a lot of fun for us to do the show from there to really get that stuff. So we're that's in the works for next season to potentially do that. And hopefully if the combine returns to normal, maybe we can hit that as well.
Wanted to do that this year, but they pretty much scrapped that. So I think we're just going to be stuck with doing the pro days, which is not,
it's not the worst. Yeah. So definitely check out his coverage of the Senior Bowl next week. Going to be invaluable because it's going to be the only opportunity we have to actually see these guys work out in person. Because as we said, there will be no combine. So important stuff. Thank you, Eric, for taking that on. We appreciate that coverage and for your help with the show every week. Also with us, finally, Evan Birchfield. He is on Twitter at the very easy to remember Evan Birchfield. Evan, anything that you're working on you'd like to plug?
Nothing specific. I spoke with Andy Levitri, who played for the Falcons a couple years ago. Before that, he played for the Titans under Arthur Smith, who was offensive line coach and then became tight end assistant coach or whatever. But basically got his thoughts on it because he's familiar with obviously Arthur Smith and the Falcons organization. So pretty interesting. That's on the Falcoholic.com right now. So
yes, definitely check that out, guys, to get an inside look at Arthur Smith and to get that insider perspective from former Falcon Andy Levitri. Definitely looking forward to reading that. I haven't had a chance myself to take a look at that. So, guys, I am Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin on Twitter. I know you guys are hungry for more content on the YouTube channel, so more will be coming. I'm going to now kick off a free agency series. So starting Friday, we're going to do an episode breaking down the different types of free agents and the basics. And then after that, we're going to start diving into potential re-signings for the Falcons. And then we're going to go position by position and look at potential free agents the Falcons might be interested in bringing in. So that'll be an ongoing series up until free agency kicks off in March. We're also going to have, obviously, stuff on Arthur Smith and his offense coming down as well. Tomorrow I'm going to have, Thursday, I'm going to have a piece on what we talked about tonight, which is that we don't need Derrick Henry to run Arthur Smith's offense. So check that out as well on the site. And also just like and subscribe. We really appreciate that. That helps the channel grow. It helps folks find us on the YouTubes, like this wonderful Jags fan who apparently just randomly got recommended the show and has been, I guess, annoying everyone in the chat. Thanks for the clicks. We appreciate you tuning in, brother. Otherwise, guys, like I said, check us out on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. We have a variety of tiers there if you're interested in supporting the show on a monthly basis. Like I said, that patron Q&A is going to be probably later next week. So if you're interested in taking part in that, get subscribed soon so I don't forget to include you in that because I will. I'm going to be busy next week. So this is your heads up. And again, guys, do follow the show on Twitter at Falcoholic Live. We did get to 1,000 followers. Thank you all so much for your support from last week on that. We'll be back, I believe it is Sunday, for the NFC Championship for another playoff watch party. Those have been a lot of fun. I think it's Sunday right around 3 o'clock. We'll be back. So if you're interested in hanging out with us during that game, we'll be watching the Packers and the Buccaneers live here on the Falcoholic Live. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for enjoying the offseason with us and the ride of the coaching carousel and all of this. It's finally come to an end. We have our new GM and we have our new head coach. I'm psyched about it. It seems like everybody else, all of our wonderful co-hosts and guests this evening are psyched about it. So we hope you guys are psyched about it too, and hopefully we can have something more positive to talk about this season as opposed to last season. So until Sunday, guys, I'm Kevin Knight. For everyone else tonight,